So good morning, everyone. So can you see my presentation? Sa inyong end? Hello, polite.
Yes, sir.
Okay. How about my voice, polite? Okay na?
Okay na, sir.
Okay. Okay, sige. Please bear with me. Kiburahin ang internet connection karon sa school. Kailangan ng panahon. So, continue our discussion about statistics. Later, after this discussion class, mag-send ko og examination sa midterm sa Google Classroom. So please check na lang. The coverage of the exam sa midterm is katong discussion na to sa midterm. Katong duha ka lessons. Okay? So let's talk about probability theory. So what is probability theory? So by the word itself, probable, okay, probability. Diba? If you talk about probable or probabilities, that probably you are just it's somewhat like you are you are predicting the result, or you are hypothetically you are creating a result without the actual basis yet kung unsa jud ang sakto nga answer. So duha ra ka book ang pwede mahimong result sa probability class, either failure siya or naay accuracy. Now the probability theory or the probable theory is about explaining the extent of the relationship between the variables that you chose, or even the subject of your study that you have included. So if you have more variables, uh, let's say variables nga kalapitang included sa iyong study, you will have a hard time connecting those variables and trying to find out what kind of relationship does those variables na has, di ba? Like unsa ilahang uh, usay main connection between those variables. So you have to choose a variable which in kwan siya kanabitang connected siya sa inyong study. So as you can kanang recall sa inyong defense last time, we are so keen when it comes to trying to find out what kind of variables you are using, because you are using two type of frameworks man good, conceptual and theoretical. If you'll be connecting the theoretical framework sa imuhang conceptual, layo ra kaayo, then more ang iyong explanation sa inyong kanang RRL or even iyong chapter 1, no, mas more mo dito sa conceptual rather than sa theoretical. So you have to make sure that there is an extent relationship between the first thing na imuhang or first study conducted, that is in chapter 1, payo na sa imuhang chapter 3 and so on. And also, no, the probability theory is all about the probability of an event occurring, or the probability of an event that is about to occur. So again, you have sa inyong study, sa inyong research, you have what we call null hypothesis. Okay? You have two types of hypothesis sa inyong study ngayong gi-include. The one that is actually has the highest percentage of getting the result, and the other one is the less, di ba? So upon checking the two, you have to make sure that the method that you're using will lead you either sa duha ka study or duha ka result, either the one that has a high percentage of getting the result or the lesser. And then dito na siya mabikil dayon class when you're about to explain or when you're about to generalize the idea between the two. Either dito ka sa isa, which is the one that you're looking for, or the other one that is the opposite of the possible answer that you will get. And of course, no, probability is also about checking an event that can be accurately predicted. So this is what I meant kanina, no? Either the one that is accurate or the one that is a failure. So that is the result when it comes to when you talk about probability theory. So for example, if the probability of your study is about 0.23, then you will say that wala talaga, no, 1.0 is the highest probability, or the accurate probability that your study should have at the end at the end of your research. And then uh, when you convert that 0.23 into percentage, that 1.0 magod is, let's say, that is already the answer that you should have, that will be the solution of the problem nga inyong gikandaktan. So if you have 0.23 as your probability, then you will say that there is a 23% of probability that a particular event will occur. So if you have a ratio of 3, 1, like 3 is the highest and 1 is the lowest. If the 3 there is is the 0.75 and the 1 there is the 0.25, so the highest probability there is the 0.75, diba? And then the lesser is the 0.25. So if ato siya i-ratio, may mo siyang 3 is to 1. Then the result of 3 is to 1 is the 4. So dapat, if you will be explaining between the 3 is to 1, make sure that you will have a better explanation on the highest percentage of the probability rather than the lesser. Because the highest percentage there will determine your answer dito sa inyong research. You will not explain the lesser, because if you will explain the lesser, you will have it will become a long type of negotiation, because you need to make sure that the lower percentage there is will not affect the highest. Okay? What will happen dapat is that the lower kana percentage that you get should at least neutralize dito sa ato ang highest. So explain ta dito sa highest probability rather than the lowest, because that is the result of your study. How about the inferences? Okay, inferences is like a conclusion or judgment based on evidence. When you say evidences, you are talking about the methods that you're using. And then the methods you're using should at least lead you to a better, accurate answer. Another also is, it is also called as a judgment that is based from statistical results. So you need to be more on statistical nga mga methods wherein the probability of your result is more accurate rather than what do you call this one? Fixed rules. Okay? So you have to make sure that it is more accurate. Do not use a statistic that is not really good for your study. Like, kung inyong problem is quite complicated, do not use statistics na easy peasy lang. Okay? Make sure to use some statistics na mo align siya dito sa inyong study, which is complicated. If your study is quite easy, then use some statistics na method na easy. Diba? So, you don't have to make things complicated if you know at the first place na sa'yo na inyong research. Like what is happening right now. You are conducting your study here in the school, and you are given an idea already on what kind of statistics you're using. Do not jump another method. Okay? Use the suggested statistics. Okay? Kung magbut-but magud mo, nadugay mo sa inyong result. Okay? How about the decision theory? Okay. The decision theory is all about assuming that all the group in the study used to test a hypothesis, and there are components of the same population that is relative to the variables under study. Okay, let's keep on repeating the meaning of the variables here. Okay, the decision theory is all about assuming that there is an answer based from hypothetical components that you have used, and also the variables that were included in the study. If you are using, again, theoretical framework, but there is no alignment when it comes to the conceptual framework, then try to decide if you are really using the correct component. Because if there's none, then try to change it. Because kung di naman na siya i-change man good, uh, the panelists will seek to find more of the one katong mga dili siya parts yung study. And the more makita ang mga panelists sa mga dili parts sa mong study, the more na nila siya i-prove. Di ba? So, if you cannot prove the let's say, the component that was included in the study, yet, di siya dapat, and if you fail to discuss that one to the panelists, then magbalik-balik mo siya yung study dyan, magbalik-balik mo siya yung research. It is also talks about the how the researcher will provide evidences that there is really a difference. Okay, so like if we go back on the statistical methods that you're using, if there is a lack of evidence provided ito sa yung study, and there is a difference between the result that you have to the possible result dapat ninyong makuha, then try to make, this is where the decision will come, no? Try to make some decisions. Okay? Either you will proceed on the methods that you have used, or you will neglect the result that was, let's say, that was the answer dito sa inyong gigamit na statistical method na supposedly dili dapat. So, you have to make sure that as a researcher, you will provide an evidence that will make sure that even if there's a difference between the results that you have a better answer. Let's say, you have, what do you call this one? You have a strong foundation that will literally answer those mga presumptuous questions that is that is, let's say, non-beneficial unta sa yung study, but then included naman siya, so kailangan na yung i-push. Okay? Another is to test the assumption of no difference, and it is a cut-off point that is selected before the analysis. So, like I've said, no, the hypothetical answers that you have based from again, you have two hypotheses in your study, the one that is accurate and the one that is a failure. So if you will be testing those assumptions based from if you have an assumption based from those hypotheses, make sure that there is no difference between the one that you have thought that will fail and the one that you thought that will succeed. Okay? So as a researcher, that's our job, di ba? Because you will never expect a research that is so good, that is 100% perfect, because there's no perfect na research, di ba? No perfect research na ang mga makonduct nimo. What you will have are those researches that is kanang okay lang, di ba? Na makasakto lang, na makatubag sa mga sa mga questions sa imong study. So, wala siya dapat ang imong tan-awon. Okay, so why do we need statistics? Di ba? So, statistics is all about judging the appropriateness of what kind of test we are using. If we go back on those theories like probability and decision, those type of theories were based from the kind of statistics that you're using. That's the point of creating hypothesis also. Okay? Based on the hypothesis, you will also assume that there is an answer dito po sa imong gamit na method. If there's no answer based from the methods that you have used, and then relate that one to those theories that we have, that is what they call this one, that is probably no, that is aligned dapat sa inyong study. Kuan lang ka, go back to the statistics that you're using. Okay? Because those theories that you thought will answer your question will always be what? That will always base its answer from statistics. Okay, it's about the critical appraisal. So the factors that must be included in the critical appraisal when it comes to statistics is that the purpose of your study, the hypothesis, questions, and the objectives that was used, the design that was used, and the level of measurement. Okay, first is you must judge whether the procedure was performed appropriately and the result were interpreted correctly. If you don't interpret the result correctly, then you don't have to conclude and generalize the study. Okay? Because what's the point of interpreting it or concluding the study if result pa lang you have interpreted it incorrect? So you have to make sure that the result were interpreted correctly. And then, usahay, no? Again, if you are choosing a very complicated type of study, make sure that you have also used a better statistical method na align siya dito sa imong complicated na study. If your study is easy, then use again a statistic that is very easy, a method that is easy, para maka-come up mo with a correct interpretation. Not just haka-haka, not just about assuming lang. Okay? So what are the information needed? First is you have to decide whether the research question is focuses on the differences or associations or between relationships. Hindi siya akong confirming sa inyo class. When you're asked mong good about when you come up with this study, kung sa inyong basis, then some of you will answer based na siya, sir, sa kanang trending, timely kay siya, sir. But the question is, were the question created before the study is really focuses on the differences or relationship? Pagkatanaw mo sa variables, may mo nga muna siyang variables na mo, sir. Like, most of your study is all about demographic profile. If you're asked about what is the basis of the demographic profile to your study, as mo siya percentage sir nga ang mga babae, lalaki is related na yung study, etc. Then when you try to ask again, what will be the what if there is na atay gitawag nga kanang unfair, di ba? Natay gitawag nga unfair, natay gitawag nga kanang inequalities between sa imong demographic profile gamit ito sa imong study. Di ba? Gender is not part of the demographic profile dapat when you're trying to focus your study on solving a problem, because there's no such thing as difference between a male and a female when they're doing things, di ba? Like kung ang babae makabasa, ang lalaki makabasa, kung sa ilahang difference silang comprehension. Gusto sabihin ka, parang babae bright ka sa lalaki. Di ba? Di ba na siya pwede? So you have to make sure that you are focusing on either the relationship or the difference of those subjects on your study. Then again, also, no, try to create a better foundation and a better framework. Do not just create a framework or a foundation based from what you believe, di ba? Ayaw lang. Try to make sure that there is a strong foundation behind your study, because if you don't have a strong foundation, pasabot dana, you cannot answer even a simple questions from the panelist. I'm telling you. Another also is to determine the level of measurement. Okay, that's why you're asked what kind of who are your respondents. May mo nga ka na ang respondents sa grade 12. So try to narrow the context. Asa na nga grade 12 level. isang strand. So, you have to choose a strand. Sir, tanan na mo i-choose, sir. Tanan na mo ang i-subject, i-respondent. Try to narrow more the context of the study. Pila ka respondent per strand? 10. Okay? And then try to determine what kind of statistical method that you will use to measure those respondents. So you will use this one, this one, this one, this one. And then if you have determined already the level of measurement based on the number of respondents included in your study, then I'm telling you, you will have a good result. Because sama sa mura ba tawag kuan mura gi-filter ninyo no ang mga kuan ang informations based not only from the what you believe or not based from the kuan the false variables that you have used, but you have determined there the correct, let's say not correct, but the right respondents that will determine that will determine your study. So what are the data types that we are using when it comes to statistics? Sometimes we have another gitawag nominal, we have the ordinal and the interval or the ratio. So these data types has a very important contribution when it comes to determining the exact statistics that we're using. This is the example table of these are the pink one. We have different research design on the green. We have the number of groups. Okay, these are the level of the independent variables. And we have also the measurement of the dependent variables as our blue on the research variables, and also the nature of the research questions. So, natay nominal, natay ordinal, natay interval. Okay? So, most of the variables most of the frameworks that we're looking is that you should have at least 2 groups lang when it comes to variables. Because if you have more than one group, you have to make sure that you are using this type of statistics. So to cut the context short, if you have many variables on your study, especially sa iyong framework, you will be using this type of recommended statistics. You will not use only the basic one because again, most of you are using 3 groups as part of your variable. And then when you are about to conduct your study using some methods such as statistics, you're just using the easy one. How about if you will try to prove, diba? If you are proving your study, should po mag-median mode lang mo, tapos tulo ka buk inyong variable, o tulo ka buk inyong variables ginagamit. Independent, dependent, and the other variables. How to measure the other variables, how to measure the dependent, how to measure the independent. Diba? So you have to make sure that you have a better statistics used. Because if you don't have one, then don't try to make things complicated. Narrow the framework. That's why we are recommending you as early as now to at least cut it short, make it into 2. Focus on which one. Are you focusing your study on the independent or you're focusing your study on the dependent? Because you have to choose one. Because if you are choosing 2, then make sure that at the end of the study, you have an answer based from those 2. Kung yan, nakakagahi. Di ba? Pero kung ang imong level of intention and comprehension when it comes to research study is enough lang, then make sure that you have make sure that you are using only the easier one. Okay? If you don't have a guts to try the complicated. Another is to select the study design that most closely fits the one that you're looking. Again, select the study design. Naay sa inyo, gaingon nga, we are using a quasi-experimental design, sir. Some of you are using quantitative. Some of you are using descriptive. Some of you are using the inferential. Some of you are using the quali. But When it comes to your framework, conceptual lagi ka, pero ang mo laging gipili ako kay descriptive. Di ba? Dapat theoretical ka kung gusto ka descriptive. Because again, you will be more on the perception and assumptions rather than the concrete na result. So you have to make sure to select a better study design. Do not just use something that was mabago din sa mong RRL nga gigamit, sir, sa mo na pang gigamit. Dili nga na dapat. Again, you're not comparing notes. You're trying to make a better study rather than the older one. Pero yan na ba? Pero kinapayas ka pa magi-class ba na? Gusto ka nga, mas tsada imong study rather than na itong pinakauna. That's the reason kung ano nga naamoy yung references, naamoy mga RRL, okay, you're allowed to at least get some idea from the past researchers because you need it sa yung study. And choose a study design that is better. Like this one, we have a research design here that are very selective when it comes to the samples used. So another also to determine whether the study samples are independent, dependent, or mixed. Okay? Actually, nasa inyo ga mixed ang ilahang variables na ginagamit. No? Kanya, kung pakutanaw mo, say based na sa inyong mixed na variables, so na magandang hypothesis to as our basis. Yan. Na mo hypothesis na gi-based sa inyo nga gi-based sa inyong mixed variables. But the question is, how will you answer it? Then, namin method ginagamit, sir. Then, tanawin ni sir ang method. Are you sure these are the method that one that will provide accuracy sa yung answer? Then, na. Diba? So, you have to, that's the reason, class. You have to make sure that you are determining the variables sa inyong study. You have determined it already. Do not give us, okay, there are variables that are naka-statement form. Taas kayo. But the question is, sa kataas yung statement, asa na itong kapangitaon ninyo? Maraming mga, alam mo me concern, this is questions na may statement of the problems. Yes, because those questions or statements will be the basis of your questionnaire. But the question again is, sa kataas yung statement na sa inyong variables, asa na ito yung kapangita? Demographic profile. Give me a percentage probability of how the demographic profile will answer your study. Nag-base research sa inyo na. Pwede ba nga i-cut na ito, we cut it short? Can we just select one or two demographic profile that will indeed answer your question? That will lead you to an accurate answer? Okay, remove this one. Diba sa demographic profile niya, class, diba natay sex or gender, natay civil status, natay personal profile, natay ka na vicinity or address, sinahang itong mga profiling sa atuhang subject sa atong respondents. But kung ato na siyang i-table, daghan kita pwede i-kuha na, daghan kita ibuta na, kita i-prove. So why not cut it short? Why not choose two common demographic profiles sa atong respondent that will really affect the whole process of our study? So again, try to make sure that you are using a correct variable for your dependent, independent. Even if it's mixed already, there should be at least one or two specific variable that will indeed conclude the study. So we are using also a statistical test. Okay, these are some common statistical tests in our research. We have the, how do you call it, chi-square. Okay, the chi-square is also is using the nominal or ordinal data. It is also used to test for the difference between the expected frequencies if groups are alike and frequencies are actually observed in the data. We are using the chi-square to test the difference from the expected frequencies that we have or the result that we have on, let's say, what, like we are no, for example, we are using the normal curve na kwan data, and then we come up with a result wherein it is not we are expecting. The result that we're expecting is not really the result nga gigawas based on the methods that we're using. So we use a chi-square to test the difference, Jude, okay, to prove that there is really a difference on the study or the result na nag-come up based from the methods that we used. So if you're using the chi-square, this will prove that there is a difference between the expected frequencies in a group, and there is either there is an alike, okay, based from the hypothetical answers that you have, because again, you have a null hypothesis. So I think the chi-square will give us an idea about how did we come up with a hypothesis that is a failure and a hypothesis that is one that is accurate. Okay, like this one, no? We have an example of a male and a female, and then based from the exercises that was conducted. So if we have a regular exercise, we have a number of male that is 30, a female that is 4, that is 10, and then no regular exercise is 15 or 4, and for the male this is 15 and the female is 40, and then a total of 55, and then the total of the male and female is at 50. Okay, the chi-square will now indicate that there is a significant difference between the sum of the cells in the table. So let's go back on the table. Okay, even if we have a total of 50 male and a total of 50 female, and if we add that, we have 100. If we will be, if we base the from the result, no, like the regular exercise of the male is 35. That is more than what the female answer we have is all 10 lang. On the no-regular exercise, for example, we have 15 also for the male, and the majority also is the female. We can actually say that between the 50-50 here on the male and the female, there is 2:2. Pasabot na, isa pa greater ang male on the regular exercise and lesser ang female. When it comes to the regular exercise, bawion sa female ang majority of the answer rather than comparing to the male na medyo gumalang answer. Okay? So, the difference may be between only two of the cells, but there are maybe differences among all of the cells. Okay? So, that is what I meant about 2:2. The chi-square will now, the chi-square result will not tell you which cells are different. But indeed, it will give you a fair answer between, sample na ni siya sa ato ang, a fair answer dinhi sa ato ang kanang dinhi sa atong conduct na study. Can you see my icon, class? Masakit ang sa akong phone lagi ang presentation. So, sa chi-square, as a chi-square again, it do not it do not tell us about which one is greater, which one is lesser, but it give us two different answer. But it give us two different answer, but it is not. It do not It does not tell any if the one is really great and the one is really not. So, butang ta sa chi-square is na siya sa neutral na type na set, di ba? Ka-neutralize in set. So, again, mag-base ka po ta dami. Okay. If you investigate the result, okay, yes, di ba? I have 100 numbers of respondents, but I only get a total number of a male and a female with with a very neutral answer. So, dili siya mo lead og right answer, pero it will just explain, okay, the difference. It will show us the difference. So, we will continue this one next time. We will continue this one this Friday because it's already 10:05. Again, I will post, mag-post ko sa kanang classroom sa midterm exam for the 3 eyes. So the pointers or the coverage of the exam is from module 4 and module 5. Okay? Any questions so far?